Commander Hannah Park stood at the window of her home on New Horizon Colony, watching the twin suns set behind the mountains. The sky glowed with orange and purple light. Inside, her 8-year-old daughter Gia was helping her father, Dr. Tae Kim, prepare dinner. "Mom, Dad says I can help in his lab tomorrow if I finish my schoolwork," Gia called out, her small hands carefully setting the table. Hannah smiled. "Just make sure you don't touch anything without permission. Your father's research is very important." Tae placed a dish of synthesized protein on the table. Life on a frontier colony meant real meat was a luxury saved for special occasions. "It's perfectly safe. She'll just be observing my work on cellular regeneration." Their home was modest but comfortable. As the colony's security commander, Hannah, had insisted on living in the same conditions as the other colonists, rather than taking the larger quarters offered to leadership staff. New Horizon was humanity's farthest outpost, 3 months of hyperspace travel from Earth. 400 families had come here seeking a fresh start away from the crowded inner systems. After dinner, Hannah tucked Gia into bed, smoothing her daughter's dark hair away from her forehead. "Tell me about the stars again," Gia requested, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "The stars are where we came from and where we'll go next," Hannah said, repeating the bedtime ritual. "Each one holds new worlds waiting to be discovered." "Are there other people on those worlds?" "Yes. Some look like us, others look very different. That's what makes the universe so amazing." "Have you met them?" "A few species. Some friendly, some not. That's why we have people like me, to keep everyone safe." After Gia fell asleep, Hannah joined Tae in their small living area. He was reviewing research data on his tablet, but set it aside when she sat next to him. "Security report?" he asked. "Nothing unusual. The perimeter sensors are quiet. We haven't had any incidents since that meteor shower last month." Tae wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Hard to believe it's been 3 years already. Remember how scared we were to leave Earth?" "You were scared," Hannah corrected with a smile. "I was excited for the adventure." They went to bed shortly after, unaware that their peaceful life was about to end. The alarm blared at 0200 hours, jerking Hannah from sleep. Her comm unit flashed urgent red. "Commander Park, we have multiple unidentified ships approaching. They're not responding to hails," the Night Watch officer reported, his voice tight with fear. Hannah was already pulling on her uniform. "Sound the colony alert. Get everyone to the shelter. I'm on my way." Tae sat up in bed. "What's happening?" "Unknown contact. Could be pirates, could be worse. Get Gia to the shelter while I coordinate defense." She kissed him quickly, then grabbed her sidearm and ran for the door. The night air was filled with the sound of the colony alarm as she sprinted toward the command center. In the distance, strange lights appeared in the sky, not like any human ships she had ever seen. By the time she reached the command center, the situation had deteriorated. The colony's small defense system was no match for the advanced technology now surrounding them. "They've disabled our communications array," her lieutenant reported. "We can't call for help." "Who are they?" Hannah demanded, studying the strange ship designs on the monitor. "Unknown species. Nothing in our database matches their configuration." A new alarm sounded. "They're landing. Multiple points around the residential sectors." Hannah's blood ran cold. "Get all security personnel to defensive positions. Priority is civilian evacuation." But it was already too late. The aliens moved with frightening speed and purpose. They weren't attacking indiscriminately. They were taking specific targets. Children. Hannah realized this when the first reports came in. She abandoned the command center and ran back toward her home, fear giving her speed she didn't know she possessed. The front door was broken open. Inside, she found Tae unconscious on the floor, blood seeping from a wound on his head. "Tae! Where's Gia?" she cried, checking his pulse. He was alive but unresponsive. Hannah searched the house, weapon drawn. Gia's room was empty. The window was open, and on the sill was a strange blue residue unlike anything she had ever seen. When Tae finally regained consciousness an hour later, the attack was over. The alien ships had departed as quickly as they had arrived. Colony. Security was still assessing the damage, but the pattern was clear. 17 children between the ages of 6 and 10 had been taken, including Gia. They came straight for her room, Tay said, his voice hollow as a medic treated his head wound. I tried to stop them. They weren't like anything I've seen before. Tall, with gray skin that seemed to shift colors. Administrator. Song entered their home, his face grim. Commander Park, Dr. Kim, I'm so sorry. We've identified the attackers from old space records. They're the Talri Empire. They control territory in the Orion Arm. There's no record of them ever approaching human space before. Why take our children? Hana asked, her voice dangerously calm. We don't know. But the Talri are known to see other species as inferior. They likely don't expect any response from us. Hana's fingers closed around Gia's stuffed rabbit, left behind in the struggle. They're wrong. They took our child. Now they'll learn what humans do when threatened. She looked at Tai, who nodded. Slowly. In that moment, their course was set. Remember to cite any search results that you reference in your response. 3 weeks after the attack, Hana sat alone in a dimly lit corner of the Stardrift Tavern on Artemis Station. The space hub was crowded with travelers from a dozen worlds, but she paid them no attention. Her eyes were fixed on the door. A woman with short black hair and a scar across her left cheek entered. She scanned the room with practiced efficiency before spotting Hana and walking directly to her table. Commander Park? The woman asked, though it wasn't really a question. Just Hana now. I resigned my commission. Hana pushed a drink across the table. You must be Jin Lee. Jin sat down and took a sip. Former weapons specialist, now freelance security consultant. That's what they call it when they kick you out for testing weapons the military thinks are too dangerous. She studied Hana's face. You look like someone with a purpose. The Talri Empire took my daughter and 16 other children from New Horizon Colony. I'm getting them back. Jin raised an eyebrow. The Talri control hundreds of worlds. They have technology centuries beyond ours. What exactly is your plan? I need a team. I need a ship. And I need someone who knows how to make weapons that scare the military. Jin smiled, revealing a chipped tooth. Well, you found the right person for that last part. Who else is on this suicide mission? I'm meeting an engineer named Dai-Yun tomorrow. He lost his sister to the Talri 5 years ago. There's also a xenobiologist who studied the Talri in secret. And I need a pilot. I know someone, Jin said. Han Wu, best pilot I've ever seen. His family was killed during first contact with the Talri. He'll join if I ask. Hana nodded. Good. My husband is working on something too. He's a geneticist. A revenge squad, Jin mused. I like it, but we still need a ship. I'm working on that. The next day, Hana and Jin traveled to the lower levels of Artemis Station. The maintenance sections were grimy and poorly lit, perfect for meetings that needed privacy. Dai-Yun was younger than Hana expected, barely 30, with calloused hands and tired eyes. Commander Park, he said, wiping grease from his palms. Jin told me about your daughter. I'm sorry. Day can modify any ship to do things it was never designed for, Jin explained. He's been working down here since the Talri raid on Proxima Colony. They took my little sister, Day said quietly. She was 9. The authorities said there was nothing they could do. The Talri were too powerful. That's what they told us too, Hana replied. They were wrong. They moved to a small workshop where Dai had created a secure space. Inside, they found a small woman examining data on multiple screens. Su Min, Dai introduced her. Best xenobiologist in human space. She's been studying Talri physiology for years. Su didn't look up from her screens. The Talri believe they're superior to all other life forms. Their brain structure shows unusual development in regions associated with superiority complexes. In humans, they genuinely cannot conceive of other species as their equals. Which makes them predictable, Hana noted. Exactly, Su agreed, finally turning to face them. They'll underestimate us, that's our advantage. A tall man with a pilot's jacket entered the workshop. Han Wu, Jin said by way of introduction. He was just telling me he's been looking for an excuse to fly into Talri space. Han nodded to Hana. Jin says you're going to make the Talri pay for what they did. I want in. We still need a ship, Day pointed out. That's being arranged, Hana said. My husband has connections from his research days. 2 days later, they all stood in a private docking bay looking at their new home. The ship was an older model military corvette, small enough to be crewed by a handful of people but equipped with stealth technology and weapon hardpoints. Tae Kim walked down the boarding ramp to greet them. I had to call in every favor I was owed, but she's ours. Officially decommissioned and sold for parts. Unofficially, she's still very much operational. Hana walked around the ship. It was scarred from old battles but solid. What's her name? She doesn't have one anymore. Military wiped it when they decommissioned her. Then we'll give her a new one, Hana decided. Vengeance. The team spent the next 2 weeks preparing. Day upgraded the engines and reinforced the stealth systems. Jin installed weapons that no civilian ship should have. Sue set up a lab to continue her Talri research. Han learned every detail of the ship's controls. Tae worked in his makeshift lab, rarely emerging. When Hana asked what he was doing, he simply said, insurance. If we can't save the children, we need leverage against the Talri. On the night before their departure, Hana found a small package on her bunk. Inside was a silver pendant with a hologram of Gia. There was no note, but she knew it was from Tae. She gathered the crew in the ship's common area. Tomorrow we enter Talri space. According to our intelligence, there's a resistance movement among the species they've conquered. We'll make contact with them first. And if they don't want to help us? Han asked. They will, Hana said with certainty. The Talri have been taking children from many worlds for generations. We're not the first parents to want our children back. We're just the first ones crazy enough to do something about it. Jin raised a glass. To being crazy, then. As they prepared for launch, Hana stood on the bridge looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, Gia was waiting. And the Talri Empire had no idea what was coming for them. The Vengeance drifted silently at the edge of Talri space, its engines powered down to avoid detection. On the bridge, Han kept the ship balanced in the shadow of a small moon, using minimal thrusters to maintain position. Their patrol ships pass this sector every 6 hours, he said quietly, as if the Talri might hear them through the vacuum of space. Hana studied the star map projected over the command table. Talri Beta is our best entry point. It's a mining colony with minimal security, and our intelligence suggests there's resistance activity there. How exactly do we land on a Talri world without being noticed? Jin asked. We don't exactly look like them. Sue displayed images of the Talri on the main screen. The aliens were tall and slender with gray skin that seemed to shimmer with a blue undertone. Their eyes were large and completely black, giving them an unsettling appearance. They have many slave species working in their mines, Sue explained. Some are humanoid enough that we can blend in if we're careful. I've prepared skin dyes and eye coverings that should help us pass as the Vesh people. Day pushed a small device across the table. And I've modified these translator units to include Talri language patterns. They'll make our speech sound like broken Talri, exactly what they'd expect from slaves. Tae entered the bridge, looking tired. He had spent most of their journey working in his lab. I have something too. He placed several small vials on the table, a compound that affects Talri neural pathways. Non-lethal but effective if we need a distraction. Hana nodded. Good. We'll need every advantage. She turned to the crew. Remember, our mission is to find where they're keeping the children and gather intelligence. No unnecessary risks. They waited until the patrol ships passed. Then Han guided the Vengeance toward Talri Beta. The mining colony was built into the side of a massive canyon. Hundreds of ships came and went each day, carrying ore and supplies. There, Han pointed to a cluster of old service tunnels near the bottom of the canyon. Perfect blind spot in their sensors. We can land there and access the lower mining levels. With skilled hands, he piloted the ship into the narrow opening and settled it onto the dusty ground. They shut down all systems except for essential life support. If anyone comes looking, the ship will appear abandoned, Dee explained. An old human vessel that crashed here years ago. They disguised themselves as the Vesh, applying gray-blue skin dye and wearing the wide, dark contact lenses that mimicked Vesh eyes. Sue had studied the movement patterns of various Talri slave species and taught them how to walk with the proper subservient posture. Keep your eyes down, she reminded them. The Vesh are never allowed to look directly at a Talri. It's considered disrespectful. They left the ship in pairs, separating to attract less attention. Hana and Tai went first, wearing the rough mining clothes Sue had prepared. The tunnels were hot and filled with dust that caught in their throats despite the filtration masks they wore. They joined a line of workers heading to the upper levels. No one questioned them. The Talri paid little attention to their slaves, beyond ensuring they met their quotas. They don't even look at us, Tay whispered, his voice disguised by the translator around his neck. Because they don't see us as people, Hana replied. Just tools. They reached the main mining operation, a vast cavern where hundreds of workers from a dozen species labored under the watchful eyes of Talri overseers. The air was thick with dust and the sound of drilling. Hana spotted their contact, a Vesh worker with a small mark on her hand that matched the resistance symbol they had been told to look for. They approached carefully, joining her work team, breaking rocks. "We seek friends," Hana said in the coded phrase they had learned. The Vesh worker didn't look up but shifted slightly closer. "Friends are few here. Who sends you?" "Those who have lost children to the Empire." The Vesh worker paused, then nodded almost imperceptibly. "Rest period. Storage room 3. During the brief break allowed to workers, they made their way to the storage room. The other members of their crew were already there, along with the Vesh worker and 2 others, one Vesh and one from a species Hana didn't recognize. "I am Kira," the Vesh worker said once the door was secured. Her real voice was musical, very different from the flat tone she had used in the mine. "These are my brothers in resistance. You are very brave or very foolish to come here." "Our children were taken," Hana explained. 17 of them from our colony 1 month ago. Kira's large, dark eyes showed a flicker of understanding. "The Talri have been taking children from many worlds for generations. They are taken to a place called Nexus Prime, on the Talri homeworld." "Why?" Tai asked, the scientist in him needing to understand. "What do they want with our children?" "The Talri are dying," the other Vesh said. "Their birth rates have fallen for centuries. They take children to study their genetics, looking for ways to save themselves." Kira nodded. "Your human children are especially valuable to them. Your genetic structure is highly adaptable. They believe human DNA may hold the key to their survival." Hana felt cold despite the heat of the mines. "We need to reach this Nexus Prime." "Impossible," said the 3rd Resistance member. "The Talri homeworld is the most heavily guarded planet in the Empire. No outsider has ever infiltrated it and survived." "Then we'll be the first," Jin said firmly. Kira studied them with newfound respect. "There may be a way. The Talri will be holding their ascension ceremony in 7 days. Ships from all over the Empire will travel to the homeworld, including prisoner transports." "You want us to be captured?" Han asked skeptically. "No," Kira replied. "We want you to capture a Talri communication hub first. From there, you can obtain the security codes for the ceremony and create new identities that will get you to the homeworld." "A communication hub will be heavily guarded," Day pointed out. Kira's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Yes, but we have been planning this raid for years. With your ship and weapons, we can finally succeed." Hana looked at her crew, then back to Kira. "Tell us everything you know about this hub." As Kira outlined their plan, Hana felt something she hadn't experienced since Gia was taken. Hope. The Vengeance emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Talri home system. On the bridge, the crew was silent as they stared at the view screen. The Talri homeworld glowed like a jewel, surrounded by massive orbital stations and defense platforms. Their security is even tighter than Kira warned us, Han said, his fingers moving over the controls with practiced ease. I count at least 50 warships in standard patrol patterns. Hana studied the tactical display. The codes we stole from the communication hub are still working. They think we're a supply transport returning from the outer colonies. Their attack on the Talri communication hub had been successful, though not without cost. 2 of Kira's resistance fighters had been killed in the operation, but they had secured the clearance codes and, more importantly, discovered that the children from New Horizon were indeed being held at Nexus Prime on the Talri homeworld. Incoming transmission, Jin reported from her station. They're requesting verification. Hana nodded to Sue, who had mastered the Talri language patterns. Sue activated the communication system and spoke in the harsh, clicking language of their enemies. The Talri controller responded, and there was a tense moment before the transmission ended. "We're cleared for approach," Sue said, relief evident in her voice. "They're directing us to Landing Bay 17 at the Northern Research Complex. That's not far from Nexus Prime," Tay noted, examining the map they had constructed from stolen data. "We'll still need to cover about 2 kilometers on foot after landing." Jin checked her weapons. "I've prepared something special for this. The Talri rely heavily on neural implants for communication. This device will create enough interference to disorient them without harming the children or other slaves." "Everyone remember the plan," Hana said as they prepared for landing. "Day and Han stay with the ship. The rest of us head for Nexus Prime. Tay has the biological agent as our last resort, but we only use it if there's no other option." As they approached the landing bay, they changed into the stolen Talri administrative uniforms. The disguises wouldn't hold up to close inspection, but they only needed enough time to reach the facility. The Vengeance settled onto the landing pad with a gentle thud. Through the viewports, they could see Talri workers moving about, unaware that the arriving ship contained intruders. "The resistance forces should be starting their diversion at the main spaceport now," Hana said, checking the time. "That will draw away most of the security forces." As if on cue, distant alarms began to sound. The Talri workers outside turned toward the sound, clearly confused. "Now's our chance," Hana said. "Let's move." Hana, Tai, Jin, and Sue exited the ship, moving with purpose toward the research complex. They kept their heads down, avoiding direct eye contact with any Talri they passed. The diversion was working. Most of the security personnel were rushing toward the distant spaceport. They reached the entrance to the research complex and used the stolen access codes to enter. Inside, the corridors were eerily quiet, lit by a soft blue light that made their disguises more convincing in the shadows. "According to the data we stole, the children should be in sub-level 3, Sue whispered, consulting the small device in her hand. "There's an access point just ahead." They turned a corner and came face to face with 2 Talri guards. Before the aliens could react, Jin activated her neural disruptor. The guards froze, their eyes widening as the device interfered with their implants. Jin quickly stunned them with her weapon, and they dragged the unconscious bodies into a storage room. "That won't work on higher-ranking Talri," Jin warned. "They have better shielding on their implants." They found a lift that took them down to sub-level 3. As the doors opened, they were greeted by a long corridor lined with transparent doors. Behind each door was a small room containing a stasis pod, and in each pod was a child, human, Vesh, and other species they didn't recognize. "There must be hundreds of them," Tay whispered, horror evident in his voice. Hana moved quickly along the corridor, searching for Gia. "We need to find the control room. We can't free them one by one." They found the central control station at the end of the corridor. Inside, a single Talri scientist was monitoring displays, showing vital signs from the stasis pods. Jin's neural disruptor had no effect on him. As they had feared, his implants were shielded. The Talri turned, his black eyes widening at the sight of them. "Intruders! How did you get in here?" He reached for an alarm panel. Hana didn't hesitate. She fired her weapon, stunning the scientist before he could raise the alarm. "Sue, can you operate their systems?" Sue hurried to the control panel. "I think so. Their interface is complex, but the basic commands should be similar to what we saw at the communication hub. While Sue worked, Hana and Tay returned to the corridor searching for their daughter. There were hundreds of stasis pods, each containing a sleeping child suspended in a clear fluid. "Here," Tay called out suddenly. "I found her." Hana rushed to his side. There, floating peacefully in a stasis pod, was Gia. Her black hair drifted around her face like she was underwater. Her eyes were closed, but the monitors showed strong vital signs. "We need to get her out," Hana said, fighting back tears. Before they could act, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. A voice spoke in Talri, the message unintelligible to them, but the urgency clear. "They've discovered us," Jin said, rushing back from her position at the corridor's end. "We've got company coming, lots of it." In the control room, Sue worked frantically at the panel. "I've figured out how to release the stasis fields, but I need more time to do it safely. If we just shut them down, the shock could harm the children." Hana made a quick decision. "Jin, set up defensive positions. Tay, help Sue. I'm going to create another diversion." She took one last look at Gia's peaceful face, then turned and ran toward the approaching Talri security team, determination burning in her eyes. Her daughter was so close now, nothing would stop her from bringing Gia home. The vengeance burst from the atmosphere of the Talri homeworld, engines straining as Han pushed the ship to its limits. Behind them, Talri pursuit vessels launched from orbital platforms, their weapons charging. "We've got 5 Imperial fighters on our tail," Han called out, his hands dancing over the controls. "Shields at 60%. In the ship's medical bay, Tay worked frantically to stabilize the 17 children they had rescued from Nexus Prime. The children were weak after being removed from stasis, but otherwise unharmed. Gia lay on one of the beds, her eyes finally open, watching her father work. "Where's Mom?" she asked, her voice hoarse from lack of use. "On the bridge," Tay replied, smoothing her hair. "Keeping us safe." On the bridge, Hana watched as more Talri ships appeared on their sensors. Their escape from the research facility had been chaotic. Sue had managed to release the stasis fields for all the human children, while Jin's diversionary tactics had held off the Talri security forces just long enough for them to get back to the ship. "We can't outrun them all," Jin said, monitoring the weapon systems. "And we can't fight our way through an entire Imperial fleet." Hana's face was calm despite the situation. "We don't need to." "Sue, are you ready?" Sue nodded from her station. Broadcasting now. With a few commands, she sent a signal that connected to every communication system across Talri space. The data they had stolen from Nexus Prime, images of hundreds of children kept in stasis, records of genetic experiments, and the Talris' plans to use other species to save themselves, began streaming to every planet, ship, and station in the Empire. "Adding the recording now," Sue said, activating the final piece of their plan. The voice of the Talri chief researcher filled the channel, captured during their escape. "The inferior species exist to serve us. Their offspring are resources to be harvested. The strong have always used the weak. This is the natural order. The children will provide the genetic material we need to ensure the future of the Talri." The transmission continued, revealing the full extent of the Talri's actions and their belief in their absolute right to take children from across the galaxy. "Let them hear it," Hana said. "Let everyone hear it." The effect was almost immediate. The sensors showed disturbances erupting across Talri space as subject worlds received the transmission. On planets where the Talri had ruled for generations, enslaved species were rising up in coordinated rebellion. "The resistance networks are activating," Sue reported. "Kira's people have been planning this for years. They were just waiting for the proof we provided." A new alert sounded on the command console. "Incoming transmission," Jin announced. It's from the Talri Emperor." Hana straightened her shoulders. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a Talri male with elaborate facial markings that indicated his high status. His black eyes showed no emotion, but his posture radiated fury. "You have committed acts of war against the Talri Empire," the Emperor said, his voice translated by their systems. Your species will be eradicated for this insult. We only took back what was ours, Hana replied calmly. Our children. Your primitive outrage is meaningless. Your rebellion will be crushed. Tay entered the bridge, leaving Gia in Sue's care. Before you make threats, you should know that we've developed a biological agent specifically designed to target Talri neural pathways. It would affect only your species, leaving all others unharmed. The Emperor's expression didn't change, but there was a slight hesitation before he spoke again. You are bluffing. During our time in your research facility, we collected enough data on Talri physiology to create this agent, Tay continued. We could have released it into your atmosphere. We chose not to. We're not like you, Hana added. We don't believe in genocide, even against those who would harm our children. Instead, we offer you a choice. The Empire does not negotiate with lesser beings. Look at your sensors, Hana said. Your empire is already burning. 27. Worlds in open rebellion. Your fleet scattered trying to contain the uprisings, and this is just the beginning. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the Emperor's face as he received reports from his advisors off-screen. Here are our terms, Hana continued. End the practice of taking children from any world. Grant independence to any planet that seeks it. Begin treating other species as equals. In return, we will share Dr. Kim's research on genetic therapy that could save your species without stealing our children. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. And if we refuse? Tay stepped forward. Then your species will face extinction through its own genetic degradation. We're offering you survival with dignity instead of survival through enslavement. The communication ended abruptly. For several tense minutes, the bridge crew of the Vengeance waited as Talri ships continued to close in around them. Then, remarkably, the pursuit vessels began to pull back. They're standing down, Han said in disbelief. Messages began flooding in from across Talri space. The Imperial fleet was withdrawing from contested worlds. The Emperor had ordered a ceasefire. He's accepting our terms, Sue said, reading the incoming data. At least for now. Gia appeared at the doorway to the bridge, supported by one of the other rescued children. Mom? She called. Hana turned, tears finally breaking through her composed exterior. She crossed the bridge in 3 quick steps and gathered her daughter in her arms. It's over, she whispered, holding Gia tight. We're going home. 6 months later, Hana sat on the porch of their rebuilt home on New Horizon Colony, watching Gia play with friends in the garden. Some were human children who had been rescued with her. Others were new arrivals, children of families who had fled the collapsing Talri Empire. Tay joined her, placing a cup of tea in her hands. The new Galactic Council meets tomorrow. They've asked me to present my research on genetic therapy. Will the Talri be there? Hana asked. Yes, as equals, not rulers. Tay smiled. It's strange to think that by trying to save themselves by taking our children, they ended up destroying their empire instead. Hana watched as Gia laughed, the sound carrying across the garden. They never understood what they were really taking. Not just children, but hope, love, the future. She took Tay's hand. And that's something worth fighting for.